If you think you know Meghan Markle, watch this before you say another word. Because by the end of this video, you're going to see how one man, her own father, claims she didn't just change her life, she changed her face, her story, and even her family to match whatever version of herself she was selling. You're going to see the photos he points to, the timeline he lays out, and the pattern he says proves Meghan's public image is a calculated reinvention, not an organic evolution. And once you hear it all together, you'll understand why Thomas Markle says he doesn't even recognize his own daughter anymore, literally or figuratively. Let's get into it. Thomas Markle has finally said the quiet part out loud. He's not doing the wounded, silent dad routine anymore. He's saying on record that the woman the world sees today is not the same girl he raised. Not just in personality, not just in status, but in her actual physical face. And when a parent says that, you have to pause, because parents don't usually torch their own kids in public unless something broke beyond repair. According to Thomas, this isn't some petty "she got work done" rant. He's saying the surgeries, the fillers, the refinements, those were all part of a bigger strategy. In his words, Meghan didn't just grow up. She upgraded. She edited. She curated. She became whatever she needed to be for the next room she wanted to enter. And every time she leveled up, Hollywood, suits, royal life, her face, her story, and her circle shifted with it. That's the bomb he's dropping. Let's start with the part that makes everyone uncomfortable, the photos. Because you can argue intentions, but you can't argue what's on camera. Thomas says if you line up childhood Meghan, teenage Meghan, early actress Meghan, suits era Meghan, and Duchess Meghan, you're not just seeing aging or makeup. You're seeing stages. He points to changes in nose shape, jaw definition, eye openness, overall facial proportions, changes that don't usually happen in that direction with age. Most people don't get more refined, more symmetrical, and more royal-ready in their 30s and 40s without help. And Thomas says she got help. Not once, but progressively. Now, here's where it goes from celebrity did a nose job to this is a whole character build. According to him, each wave of changes lined up perfectly with what she was trying to be at that moment. Early hustle Meghan, commercials, briefcase girl, auditions had one look. TV Meghan, suits Meghan, got sharper, more angular, more in line with cable drama standards. Royal era Meghan? Softer, more European, more in line with what the palace PR machine could present to the world. That's not random. That's curation. Thomas specifically calls out the nose as the most obvious clue. Early photos show a wider bridge and fuller tip. Later photos show a narrower, sculpted version that fits current beauty standards. On its own, fine. Hollywood people do that every day. But he says that was just the entry point. He claims there were likely fillers to build cheek structure, treatments or Botox to slim and define the jaw, work to open up the eye area, and maintenance to keep everything smooth. In his view, that wasn't insecurity. That was strategy. And here's the accusation that will have Meghan's fans fuming. Thomas says the physical tweaks were matched to identity tweaks. He says Meghan has always been very aware of how she was perceived racially and socially, and that she leaned into whatever version of her background benefited her most at the time. In school, he says, she let people assume she was Italian or Mediterranean. She leaned into her dad's side, told Malta stories, and her black mom didn't show up to school events, so nobody clocked that she was biracial. Then years later, when she marries into the whitest institution on earth, suddenly her mixed-race identity is front and center. She's breaking barriers. She's the face of change. She's the first of her kind. Thomas isn't saying she shouldn't have owned that. He's saying she didn't always own it, she deployed it. And he says the surgeries helped her sit in both worlds. When she wanted to be racially ambiguous, the softened, refined face helped people put her in that box. When she wanted to be the face of diversity, she could point to her heritage, her curls, her mom. In his eyes, that's not organic, that's adaptive branding. And he's hurt because he says he watched it happen in real time, while being slowly cut out. Now, let's address the question everyone asks. Why would a father say this publicly? Why go this far? Thomas's answer is brutal, because he says he was erased. Not drifted from. Not we're not close right now. Erased. He says as Meghan built her new life, he became a liability to the story. He had the old photos. He knew what she looked like before the alleged work. He knew what she said in high school. He knew how she described herself before the world was watching. And you can't sell version 5.0 of yourself when version 1 is sitting in Mexico, doing interviews. In his mind, that's why the royal wedding played out the way it did. Remember, he was supposed to walk her down the aisle. That's tradition. That's sentimental. That's global TV. Then suddenly, he's in a scandal over staged paparazzi photos. Suddenly, he's unwell. Suddenly he's out, and Prince Charles steps in cleanly. To Thomas, that wasn't an accident. That was house cleaning. That was removing the person who could say, that's not the whole story. That was eliminating the man who knew the pre-royal, pre-suits, pre-surgery Meghan. And here's where his argument gets sharp. He says Meghan doesn't just update her life. She rewrites whatever doesn't serve the new chapter. Old face? Updated. Old friends? Faded. Dad who raised her? Villainized. Childhood narrative? Reframed. And the cosmetic work, for him, is proof. Because bodies don't lie. Faces don't lie. If you're willing to change the thing people literally see every day, then what else are you willing to change? Your origin story? Your relationship timeline? Your version of what happened with the royals? He's basically saying, if she can quietly rebuild her face, she can quietly rebuild her past. That's the core of his accusation. And remember, this isn't some YouTube commentator. This is her father. That's why it lands differently. When random people online say she looks different, you can dismiss it as jealousy or gossip. When plastic surgeons on TikTok say it looks like a rhinoplasty, you can say it's speculation. When your father says that's not the face I watched grow up, people listen. Because that's not an outsider. That's the guy with the photo albums. Thomas also calls out what he sees as hypocrisy. Meghan has publicly positioned herself as someone who challenged Hollywood beauty standards, who pushed back on racism, who was othered by the industry. But he says she actually played the game hard. He claims she did what everyone in Hollywood does, got the work, refined the look, became more marketable. Then later, when it was useful, she rebranded as someone who fought against those very standards. In his view, the issue isn't the surgeries, it's pretending there were no surgeries while using the benefits of them. It's saying, I'm just naturally like this when, according to him, there was a list of procedures and a long-term plan. And he says that plays into the bigger Meghan Markle contradiction: authenticity as a product. In 2025, authenticity is currency. People don't just buy clothes, they buy stories, trauma, identity, survival. Meghan mastered that. I was silenced, I was unprotected, I was othered, I broke barriers. That stuff is powerful. But it all collapses if someone close to you says, she edited herself for years. She hid parts of herself when it was convenient. She embraced them when it was beneficial. That's the exact claim Thomas is making. He's saying the surgeries are not the scandal, the selective honesty is. Let's talk specifics, because people always want to know what procedures are being implied. Thomas points to an early rhinoplasty to narrow the bridge and refine the tip, injectable or structural work to build cheek definition, possible lower face slimming through Botox or contouring techniques, an eye-opening procedure or brow work to make the eyes look more awake on camera, and ongoing maintenance to keep everything cohesive as she aged. That's not, I got a little filler once. That's, in his eyes, image construction. And once he says that out loud, it makes the rest of his claims harder to dismiss. Because now the question becomes, if your public face isn't fully your real face, is your public story fully your real story? That's what he wants people to ask. He also brings up race in a way that is going to make this conversation extremely divisive.